So the first question, Bhakti Margam, the Bhakti Yoga or the path of Bhakti seems to have the advantage of the following: keeping the mind away from lower thoughts, most likely give company of the like-minded people, is based on surrender or reduction of ego, conducive to bulk of people. So it is not bound to be the most prevalent form of religion. It can be fulfilling also if a person remains at least unselfish and the religion is not practiced superficially, no pure rituals. Have we got the question right, Vijayji?
Unmuted, Guruji.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Now it's, I think, yes. Because still notification came. Yes, Guruji, I think which is what I meant. I'm not sure whether it reflects on my understanding of what, the question reflects on that or not. Yeah, this is what I meant to ask. Okay. The reason why I asked, only I'll give the possible reason, is that I go back to the verse 20 of Bhajagovindam. I think you had mentioned earlier, in the earlier classes, where we said that it's a lot of discussion took place on that, around that also, like integration of jnana, mama, karma, bhakti karma, and third one I just get the word anyway. So now the karma, sorry. Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Okay, and you also mentioned that these all of them have to be integrated. First two have to be integrated, or to various degrees, various proportions, or whatever, and then ultimately end up in the Karma Yoga.
Right.
Now, in the case of practice of religion, primarily we ensure that at least the Bhakti Yoga is maintained as much as possible. So unless the individual is exposed or has the propensity to absorb as much of ask questions or absorb as much of jnana yoga, at least that onwards forward the person can go, and I think that seems to be the key point of religion.
Vijayji, let's not confuse it. If I were to clarify these points, and if anything further lurks, we'll address that. Okay. I don't know how much the audience would be able to follow the line of thought, because there are few elements that are captured in the questions. Okay. Before I just get into it, I'm just happy to welcome Mickey Ma. Her real name Samrata Ma. I happened to meet her in Bangalore, and lovely personality, and she was very keen in this wisdom. So warm welcome and Hari Om to you, Ma. Namaskar. Right. So Vijayji, firstly, the Bhakti Margam seems to have an advantage. As I have maintained earlier as well, there is no advantage of any particular path. The three paths the Shastras have prescribed are Karma Yoga for the physical body, Bhakti Yoga is for the mind, and Jnana Yoga is for the intellect. And every human being, whether you like it or not, every human being is a composition of three physical, mental, and intellectual personalities. Every human being has got, no human being is devoid of any aspect of this constitution. So there's nothing like an advantage of one path over the other. So if I am a person who is predominantly emotional, I will be inclined naturally towards bhakti yoga. If I am predominantly an intellectual person, I'll be predominantly inclined towards knowledge. If there is a balance of emotion and intellection, which is a balance of head and heart in a human, such a person is more inclined towards karma or seva. Now, this is the constitution that you're born with, sir. I am born with in a particular way. Every human is born in that particular way. And that doesn't change in the course of one's entire spiritual journey. You wish to change, you can change, but you are trying to put in a lot of effort to change your constitution. It is rather to use your constitution to grow spiritually rather than wanting to be something else. It's trying to be something other than what you are. So there is no advantage because all paths are meant to draw the mind to the higher. Because the first point you say is advantage of keeping the mind away from lower thoughts. In fact, any yoga, I'll come to that, Ji. I'll just give me a minute. So all yogas, whether be it karma, bhakti, and jnanam, they're all parts of yoga. Yoga is to unite you to something higher. That's the literal word of yoga means. So yoga is not to bend your back, front and back. Yoga is not to breathe in and breathe out. Yoga literally means union with the self, nothing other than that. People, the modern gurus have abused the word yoga and they are marketing other forms of yoga. The only purpose of yoga is to unite with the self. Hatha yoga is meant for those who have no head, mind, or intellect. So majority of people flock to Hatha yoga, and that is being branded and marketed as yoga. But the Shastras talk of only three preliminary, primary highways to realization: karma, bhakti, jnanam, because you have body, mind, and intellect. Full stop. This is the royal, and then there's Raja Vidya. They say Raja Yoga. Again, these are all terms that are used in the Shastras. The Raja Yoga is the path, the royal path is the ultimate culmination, which is the path of meditation. So whatever paths you choose, ultimately you culminate in meditation before you attain realization. That's why perhaps it's called the royal path, but it's a culmination point. Okay, Ji. You wanted to clarify something?
I think perhaps the word advantage should be replaced with benefits, you know.
Right.
Okay, that's what I meant in the sense. But I understand what you are saying. The question is that, you know, this makes people exploit religion.
What make people exploit religion? Sorry?
The pure, I mean, faith, blind faith, make people exploit the religious aspect of it, which, as you mentioned, Guru. But there must be a set of people who not necessarily go through rituals alone. You know, they do mean surrender. I mean, possibly the proportion is less. The second question arises out of that, you know, sort of surmise is that in a bhakti margam, all the time when you are completely dedicated to a Almighty, whatever form it is, you never sort of identify yourself as Brahman. Is my understanding right?
Sir, I'll come to all of that. Let me go step by step answering the questions. So I'm at this point where you said, is there an advantage or etc. Now, every path, if you carefully examine, every path has I'm still sticking to the term advantage or disadvantage. Every path has a benefit. Every path has an impediment, if you want to use another word for that. Now, the path of bhakti bhakti, as you said, the mind itself of a bhakta flows towards the higher. If you look at the state or the natural state of a mind of an ordinary person, a mind which is full of desires, it always runs into the world of its fascinations and temptations. It is running behind the worldly activities. It is not interested in higher. But in a bhakta where there is a love or affinity to Brahman or God, it flows naturally. So that's an advantage. Now, what's the disadvantage of a bhakta? The disadvantage is a bhakta develops, there's a certain amount of blindness. The blindness is you develop an attachment or affinity to something. So that attachment is difficult to get rid of. So I can get attached to any personality, any deity, any ritual, any religion, any ism, any form. So the mind may develop an attachment. It may have no reason why it develops an attachment. That's a loophole in bhakti. Now, jnanam is, the advantage of jnanam is it gives clear direction to the goal. That's the advantage of jnanam, because it is rational, it gives clarity of thought, and it gives you a clear direction. What am I to achieve? So the mind which is wandering everywhere, it is given a path. It's like when you have a road without those clear lane markings, it's possible that you may lose your track you may not keep to your lane. So those markings are given so that you keep to your lane. So there is like we say, we should have our blinkers on. You keep to a clear path or a goal. So jnanam gives that advantage. But what is the disadvantage of jnanam is you develop ego, ahankar. Because the first expression of jnanam is you say, I know. You think yourself superior. You think you're all knowing. And you think everybody else are useless fellows. Other yogas are, these fellows are all inferior. I'm superior because I'm dealing with jnana. You need to inject bhakti where there a fellow is predominant intellectual. You get it? Now, when there is a balance of head and heart, we take to karma. Now, what is the advantages of doing karma? Karma gives you the opportunity to get established in the spiritual path. Karma is to do unselfish seva, selfless, unselfish work. So when you perform karma, I remember my guru used to say that how to explain karma. He says, when you see any new construction site, you find when every phase, there's a development of new slab, pillars are being raised, new construction happening. There's so much effort is put in to actually pour water. They constantly keep pouring water on these concrete construction slabs, because without water, what would happen is it loses its strength. It becomes brittle, isn't it? So when you pour water, it becomes strong. So when one does karma or seva, you become established. Your path becomes solid. If you do not serve, sir, if I am not serving this cause, in short, I am a selfish person. So each one of you got to ask yourself, what am I doing to this knowledge? What am I serving to this cause? And if there is nothing that you can hold on to that I am being of some service, you are a taker of this knowledge. You come to this knowledge and you take it. You don't evolve spiritually. So it is essential that you must do karma. The advantage of karma is you get established in the path. But the disadvantage is if it doesn't have the jnanam and bhakti, what happens? It becomes a mechanical exercise. It becomes a routine mechanical activity without understanding why I'm doing karma. So every path has its own advantages or disadvantages. So there's nothing as bhakti is more advantage. Now, most likely, I'm going back to the question, most likely give company of the like-minded people. Obviously, we are all intellectuals, we are intellectualizing. So we are all amongst the people who are attuned to knowledge. We are amongst the like-minded people. Now, is based on surrender or reduction of ego? Yes, bhakti is surrender, reducing one's ego. Conducive to bulk of people? Yes, bhakti is conducive to the bulk of people, because if you look at the constitution of people at large, of what I said of physical, emotional, intellectual, if you look at the constitution, majority of people in the society are emotional category. Then comes the balance where there are people who has a balance of head and heart. Then comes intellectuals, the pure intellectuals. So I would say pure intellectuals are just 5% in a single digit proportion. You would find 50-60% of spiritual seekers all over. It doesn't matter which religion you perform, you are in, all emotional. Like, yesterday I had the opportunity of visiting a Gurudwara here. And throughout the makeshift, in fact, that place of worship was a makeshift arrangement because the main Gurudwara was being reconstructed or renovated, I believe. But throughout that short experience, I could feel the intensity of seva, the bhavana with which everybody out there does service. And they hold these langars, where they serve food to the people. Everything comes with a bhavana of seva. So you find that proportion of people who have a balance of head and heart where they perform physical action. But if I were to sit and intellectualize with them, they may not be attuned for intellectual knowledge. I can't decode an Upanishad and say, listen to me. They may be highly respectful. I'm always impressed with how devoted they are, because there's a balance of head and heart, but not purely intellectual. So since the emotional people are more pronounced, there would be bhakti conducive to the majority of people. It is, yes, the most prevalent in religion today because bhakti is predominant because of the emotional. It can be fulfilling also if a person remains at least unselfish, as religion is not practiced superficially. Yes, the problem with bhakti is most people use bhakti to
emotional touch,
ask for something to themselves. They use prayer as a means for seeking something from God. That is not the means, or that is not the purpose of prayer. Prayer, as we understand, is through bhakti, is nothing but an expression of an attitude of thankfulness. So when you go to the altar, it could be in your own home, or you go to a place of worship, it could be a temple, church, or mosque, doesn't matter. When you go to the altar, it is just to be thankful for what you have got. You may have got very little. When you compare yourself with the rest of the world, you may say, what I have from them is very less. And then you keep asking, you keep demanding, you keep desiring, and you justify and say, oh, it's right, all right for me to ask for more. But bhakti is to arrest, to checkmate your kama, is your desire. So bhakti is an attitude of thankfulness, gratefulness, an attitude where you don't entertain any more wants or desires. So yes, the question doesn't arise. It has to be of unselfishness. Bhakti is to purify your negative. So there's a desire is always portrayed negative. So bhakti is to get rid of that desires, not to ask and feed into your desires. So this is The first question. Anything with reference to what I've said, sir? You
No.
okay? Right. Can we have the question again, please?
Second question is, I think, automatically answered in one sense.
Okay. Does Bhakti Margam retain duality in the person nearly till the end, if not combined with intellectual contemplation sufficiently? One duality exists till realization. I would say there's a fundamental fallacy in the question. Why I say that is, not just Bhakti Marga, duality exists in all parts, which is karma, bhakti, and jnanam. So if you understand the spiritual progression, since we use the terms, I'm just trying to explain it through that means, or I'm using those terms. Spiritual progression, when one is in the initial stages of a spiritual path, in fact, majority of the large section of spiritual sadhana, one experiences a sense of plurality. When you experience plurality, what do you see? Only you see as names and forms. We say nama rupa, everything is names and forms. You see everything as different. I see I look at people as people from a different country, different region, different religion, different caste, different creed. So I only see things as plurality. And as one evolves and come to a very high state of spiritual growth, where you experience duality. Now, when you experience duality, you see two things. You see yourself and you see Brahman. So you experience duality where there is you and Brahman, means the entire Nama Rupa, the names and forms of plurality disappear. I see Brahman everywhere. I look at you, I see as Brahman. I look at this glass, I see Brahman. I look at the furniture as Brahman. I see an ant crawling, I see Brahman. I see a bird flying, is Brahman. I feel the worst of sinners out in the world, I see them as Brahman. The greatest of saints, everything, everybody, I see them as Brahman. And this state, in the spiritual parlance, is known as, what do you call this state as? Gayatri Ma, do you know what this state is called as?
You and me, Brahman, duality.
Ama, what is that state where you see Brahman everywhere? What is that state called? Yeah, Seturamanji. Any difficulty, Ma? Unmuting.
I have unmuted him.
Sir, we can't hear you. Maybe if you could use the chat box to type in your answer. We can't hear you, sir. Padmini Ma says Tattvamasi. No, Tattvamasi is an aphorism which tells you you are that, you are God. In fact, that state of duality. No, sir, it's not self-realized. No, self-realized is not that state. In fact, the state of duality is known as Savikalpa Samadhi, which is also known as, which is in fact known as partial Samadhi, SAMA. So a state of partial realization where you see God everywhere. You see. But what do you see? You don't see plurality, you don't see the world, you see Brahman. Okay. Now, then comes the final stage of non-dual. When there's non-dual, non-dual means not two, which is only, in other words, a state where you experience ekam. Ekam means one, you only see Brahman, that's all. He's not you seeing Brahman, there's only Brahman. That you has reached that state of Brahman, you have merged with Brahman, there's only one, and that state is, as rightly said by Ashama, it is Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is also known as total realization. Wait, what happened? There you go. Which is also known as total realization. Total realization is where you become one with God. So this is there in all religions. This exists in all parts. So there is, so when you say, is there this, what is this you said? You say, won't duality exist in Bhakti Marga? No, sir, it exists in all religions. It exists in all parts. Does that answer the question, sir?
Guruji, perfectly, Guruji. I think I was possibly in a different manner or a hazy manner. I was possibly looking at that partial realization. Till that stage only.
Right.
I mean, what is required to tip you over from partial realization to full realization is something is that part of it is a total lack of attachment and complete surrender, I suppose, is the only way, which is perhaps with an addition to intellect.
Sir, you must understand, you know, I'm just putting it in a way we can relate to. It's like a person who's trying to summit the Mount Everest, the tallest peak mountain in the world, sir. Mount Everest is 8,848 meters. A person who is not begin his spiritual journey is at ground zero level. A person who has done fairly well progressed, maybe he's in the base camp. But a person who has really progressed and advanced spiritually and reached a state of partial realization is at the state of Are you all able to hear me? Right. So a person who has reached a state of partial realization, I would say, he's, let's say, 20 meters short of the peak. I think 10 10, 20 meters short of it's called the Hillary view or Hillary point. Just, I could be wrong. Sir, a person who has climbed 8,200 meters, 100 odd meters, will he not be able to climb, sir? But that difference of 100 meters, 8,200 to vis-a-vis 8,448 meters or whatever, that difference marks all the difference, whether you're partially realized or total realized. Now, I'm quoting Swami Ramatirtha, which you can actually read through his books, which I highly recommend, in Woods of God Realization by Swami Ramatirtha. And in his lectures, he had the guts to tell the world that he said, alas, I wish the great Christ put in a little more effort, he could have attained total realization. He has the guts to say that Christ got stuck at partial realization. Today, half the humanity follows Christianity. Consider Jesus Christ as a realized soul. And one man who told the world that Christ was stuck at partial realization. You and I don't know anything. Even you may reach the base camp, but you have no clue what it is to reach that giddy heights of that shot of reaching the summit. So from our perspective, it is still far-fetched. But what I'm trying to tell is partial realization is just a few steps short of realization. You will have to practice that which got you to partial realization. You will have to perhaps intensify the same practice to reach full realization as well. And what is required to evolve spiritually is absolute detachment. You need to be completely detached. There must be no attachment, no anxiety, no binding. And there must be that ananya chinta, that is clear-cut thought to reach your goal of realization. And if I have to reach my goal, I must have no bondages. I must not get distracted with anything in the path. Many things will come along the way. You will meet lovely people. You will have many things that comes, and as the Kshira Sagara, that song, when the gods and the demons were churning the milky ocean, first came poison. And then later on, many perks came, no? The Airavata, Kamadhenu, and many perks came. It's only the Rakshasas fell for all those perks. But the gods were told, hold on, don't fall a prey to these perks. Amrita comes last. So not to be swayed by anything and only to be interested in Brahman, to have that kind of extraordinary commitment, extraordinary consistency and steadfastness. Therefore, the Gita says, one in a generation reaches self-realization. Out of 8 billion people, one soul reaching realization is not a joke. And today, any spiritual gathering, you'll find hundreds and thousands are flocking to these spiritual ashrams and gurus. None of them will reach that moksha. Or there's only 1.0001% of those who are going to get to moksha. Actual reach that goal of realization. You may look at it pessimistically, you may look at it optimistically. You may say optimistically, oh, I am that person of the 8 billion will reach there. Or to say, it needs extraordinary sadhana, extraordinary tapas, extraordinary jnanam, and to do everything in the right way so that you reach that goal of realization. One day, perhaps, we will study what are all the impediments in the spiritual path, so that we know what are all the obstacles a spiritual sadhak faces. And I can talk that through experience, and I can speak that through intellectualization, so that we are aware of the possible pitfalls. So perhaps you all should pick up this question and we'll perhaps take it up in the next class. Write out what are the impediments in the spiritual path. There are various impediments, but please apply yourself and think what are the impediments in the spiritual path. You may perhaps also extend and say, to attain the goal of self-realization. What are the impediments in the spiritual path to attain the goal of self-realization? Because that's what the spiritual path is meant for. There are many impediments. It's a long list. All right. Now, can we have the third question, please? Hariji, if you can just hold on. Once I clarify Vijayji's questions, I'll come to you. Now, in the increasingly competitive world, emphasis on self-belief is very high, resulting in the growth of egos. In the name of dismissing rituals, the normal anchoring factors of bhakti, like visiting temples or exposing children to Puranas, are declining. I agree. Bundled out with rituals. As days go by, will the karma yoga with very little bhakti have to follow only jnana yoga? Possible? Where does one start? So, as I've mentioned, where do you start is first and foremost, you must identify your spiritual constitution. What kind of your spiritual personality you are. You're born with it. What kind of proportion? What is your nature? And be true to your nature. Doesn't matter what is happening in the world. What you should be concerned is your own spiritual growth. I cannot advance your spiritual growth, neither can you advance my spiritual growth. I have to put in the effort. Now, how do I put in that effort? Is by calibrating my effort in the right way. We are all putting effort, but it's not the right proportion, sir. And I'm saying this again and again. Spirituality is more scientific than science. And today's gurus, today's sadhaks don't have a clue how scientific it is. Don't have a clue. If somebody thinks they know it, it is certainly their effort. But I'm talking the ignoramuses, the masses, they don't have a clue. So it's like going to a doctor and you have a BP and doctors prescribe BP tablets to you. And he only trying to change the proportion. He says you should take, let's say, 50 mg. But he's saying the 50 mg is not working. Okay, increase 75 mg. So 75 mg not working. Okay, take 125 mg. 125 mg, sir, I'm feeling very giddy. Okay, come back to 100 mg. He is only trying to change the proportion. What is suitable to your body? The medicine is the same. So the proportion of these parts is such a delicate exercise. You need to surrender to your guru to help you analyze what kind of a person you are, if you are not able to find out. And in my own little journey, I can hardly think of any student surrendering to me and saying, Guruji, can you help me find what my proportion is? Everybody thinks I know. Everybody thinks they're all Adi Shankaracharyas, they're all Mirabais, they all think they're all attained moksha long before. They're doing a favor to me by coming to satsang. And when I tell you, I am not interested to get into your lives, I am not interested to intrude into your spiritual path. As a guru, I'm a signpost. I will help you to guide you. But if you don't want it, I say, please find your own journey. And when I say this, is as technical, but one needs to surrender to get help, sir. So it is important that you find your constitution, be true to it. Doesn't matter what the world is, where it's leading, it doesn't matter. Whether the less bhakti or there's more jnanam required or less karma required, that is individualistic. Don't worry of what the trend is. I wouldn't be concerned. Irrespective of the trend, I need to do what is right for me. Right, sir? Yeah, please.
While we are talking about
Hariji, 1 minute. 1 minute,
oh,
sir.
sorry.
Just a minute. Gayatri ma, Vijay ji, please.
I was not referring to myself. I'm only, see, this is a problem which, okay, I won't like to generalize it. Many of us face. In the sense, the change in approach to religion or the definition of religion is very rapidly changing. I mean, in fact, a lot of people, the next coming generations, that is next generation, they are basically would like to say that we have no religion. You know, that's okay. I mean, so long as they're still spiritually inclined and if they're using the intellect for the search, it's fine. But the question is that progressively all the symbols of what we require normally in our childhood, for instance, that right from the beginning, there are certain things taught in terms of dharma and whatever, and the bhakti symbol is temple and whatever the chanting and so on and so forth. They're all becoming totally absent. That in that context, I said, I mean, I agree totally. I mean, I have no doubts that the person should choose one's own path. But then when you face the next generation, it becomes a constant contradiction and constant conflict. I mean, obviously, our objective is not to force anything on anybody, but which is not possible. It's simply not possible. But the trend is very clear. And I don't want to get into Hindu religion and other religions and all that. That's a separate subject.
Right.
Obviously, I'm totally confused. I don't know how to, I mean, what the possible answer is. It's not answer is one from general point of view, even personal point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
If there's anything further, we can take it.
I will possibly reserve it and talk to you separately. I think.
Yes, it's best, sir. So, yeah, appreciate it.
But
so,
I suspect it's a common experience with everyone, but doesn't matter. So.
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ji. Okay. Yes, Hariji.
while we are talking about the partial realization and total realization, is it not the same thing what Ishavasya Upanishad, the 15th verse, where he says that the sun is covered by the golden disk and the student is demanding, remove that golden disk. And he is with absolute confidence, he is demanding it or commanding it. Is it not the same? Or
it is not the same. It is not the same. And also, we have to be fair when you ask a question, you're completely out of context, you're asking. There would be people who have no clue what you're talking about. So you have to be mindful when you ask a question, especially when you're referring to other sections and contexts. I can relate to a blink of an eye, but I don't know how others can. So refrain from that. So throughout the Shastras, there are references here and there. But if there's anything specific to the context, you should ask. Is this meant there? That is meant here. That kind of comparative study is not required. Have you understood the concept? Here is the point. what is meant there is completely different. Now, am I to teach Ishavasya Upanishad now to explain what that Ishavasya mantra 15 is saying? How is it relevant? Then tomorrow you say, sir, in Dharmapada, Lord Buddha says this way. Does that mean this? In Kathopanishad, it is said this. Does it mean this? We are not here to do a comparative study. You do comparative study in the time you have. You can refer twist and torture textbooks to understand what Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi means, sir.
No,
Here I
brought
am explaining a concept. No, please don't bring in concepts of context out of context, because it has no direct relevance to the question. Now, how does Hiranmayena Patrena got to do with Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Hiranya Patrena is the mantra 15 of Ishavasya Upanishad you are talking about.
yeah.
I may say yes or no, but how is the class here in tune with the concept? It is out of context, sir.
Okay.
Tomorrow you may ask me, sir, what is the state of, has Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, the great, has he attained total realization? How does it matter? We can go on and go off at tangents. I am trying to cut that so that it's not now, sir. It's an observation I'm keeping in mind. I'm just trying to bring it to your kind attention. Just try and stop that comparative study. Comparative thing is not required. Shastras have given us so much wisdom. You can take one and attain moksha through that. Not necessary to say, is this meant there? Is that meant here? What that mantra says? That kind of study beyond a point is it's not fruitful. It is academic, end of the day. But does it take me to that goal is what you and I must be concerned.
Okay.
All right, Ji. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Hariji. Thank you. Setuji, you had something to say? Or you okay? Okay, right, Ji. Right.